There is a feeling that arrives quietly, disguises itself as love, and becomes the organizing force of your inner world before you ever think to question it. You think about this person constantly, not always because thinking of them brings you joy, but because your mind cannot seem to rest without some answer about where they stand with you. When they're present, something in you settles, not just into warmth, but into relief. And that relief feels indistinguishable from love. That's not an accident. That's the trap. The confusion doesn't arise because you're naive or broken. It arises because love and emotional addiction travel through nearly identical pathways inside the body and mind. Both involve an intense preoccupation with another person. Both create a feeling of incompleteness in their absence. Both make certain moments feel transcendent. The difference is invisible from the inside, not because you aren't paying attention, but because the nervous system doesn't distinguish between them. What you feel is real. The question is what it is actually responding to. Most people believe the test of love is intensity. That if something hurts this much, if the thought of losing this person produces something close to physical panic, then surely the feeling must be genuine. But here is what no one tells you. Anxiety is one of the most intense emotional experiences a human being can have. And when another person becomes the primary source of your relief from that anxiety, being near them doesn't just feel good, it feels necessary. It feels like oxygen. That's not love producing the intensity. That's the nervous system mistaking the end of fear for the presence of love. Think about what happens in the difficult moments with this person. When they go quiet unexpectedly, when something feels off without any evidence, when you sense wordlessly that something has shifted. What rises in you in those moments isn't sadness, it's something faster, something more urgent, a kind of reaching, a need to restore, to reassure, to return things to whatever equilibrium made you feel safe. Genuine love aches, but it doesn't scramble. What scrambles is something older, something in you that learned long before this relationship, that emotional safety is something that can be revoked at any moment. There is a particular kind of high that only this type of relationship produces, and it comes specifically from the reconciliation. From the moment after the uncertainty, when they text back, when they pull you close, when whatever distance opened suddenly closes. That moment feels better than almost anything, and it should feel like a warning. Because what you are experiencing in that moment is not the presence of love. It's the temporary absence of anxiety. The warmth you feel is relief, real, genuine relief. And relief, experienced often enough with the same person, teaches your brain to code that person as the solution to a problem they may also be creating. You don't love them. You love who you become when the fear of losing them finally goes quiet. This is the thing people never say out loud, but recognize immediately when they hear it. Because the version of yourself that exists in the good moments, calm, certain, open, fully present, that version doesn't arrive because of who they are. It arrives because the anxiety has momentarily stopped. And in those moments, you look at this person and feel something enormous. But what you are feeling enormous about is the silence, not the person, not entirely. This doesn't mean the feeling is false. It means the feeling is misdirected. There is a real human need underneath it, the need for consistent safety, for an emotional environment that doesn't require constant vigilance. What emotional addiction does is locate that entire need inside one person, and then call the desperation of that dependence love. The feeling is real. The story you're telling about the source of it is where things become complicated. There is a behavioral signature to this that is almost always recognizable once you know what to look for. In a relationship rooted in genuine connection, the other person's happiness can exist independently of their emotional availability to you in a given moment. You can hold them lightly. You can be glad they exist even when they're not focused on you. But when addiction enters the picture, the moment their attention shifts, or their tone changes, or the silence extends past a comfortable length, something in you activates. Not because you're too sensitive, but because your nervous system has learned to treat this one person as the singular regulator of your emotional state. And a nervous system that has only one regulator cannot afford to be relaxed. The longing you feel for someone is not always evidence of love. Sometimes it is evidence of how thoroughly your peace has become dependent on them. Around the midpoint of almost every emotionally addictive relationship, there is a private, unspoken recognition that the person being loved would describe the relationship very differently than the person doing the loving. One person experiences intensity, meaning, urgency, aliveness. The other person experiences someone who seems extraordinarily affected by them. One person feels everything. The other feels the pressure of being someone's everything. And there is a particular loneliness that arrives when you realize the experience you're having may not be a shared one. What makes this genuinely difficult is that recognizing emotional addiction doesn't automatically answer the question of what the feeling is. Because it is entirely possible to be emotionally addicted to someone you also love. The two are not mutually exclusive. What addiction does is cover genuine love with a layer of anxiety so thick that you can no longer identify which part of what you feel is connection and which part is fear. Separating them requires something most people resist: sitting with the fear without immediately resolving it through the other person. Letting the anxiety exist without reaching for the one who quiets it. When you stop using someone to manage your fear, you finally discover whether you actually love them or whether you love what they do to your nervous system. The clarity that comes from this is not comfortable, but it is honest. And honest is the only version of any relationship that has genuine potential. What exists before that honesty is not a relationship between two people. It is a relationship between one person's anxiety and another person's presence. If something in this conversation felt uncomfortably familiar, if you recognized yourself somewhere in the space between what you call love and what you know is fear, then subscribe. Because this is only one layer of a conversation that goes much deeper. And the deeper it goes, the more honest it becomes about everything we carry into every relationship we've ever had.